Right, guys, first 2 rows. I'm starting if you. Right,
yeah, I was told first.
Guys, you want to stay?
I remember when
You want to stay?
I think it's because it's the growing, the guys are running. Like we do. I think of that. We know what to do now.
you are showing me myself right now. So, ladies and gentlemen, back in 1977, there was a new TV cop show launched in the States. It involved these 3 gentlemen, and it was set on the California Highways Patrol, and it was called Chips. So, can you please welcome our guests today? Larry has to get away reasonably soon to do a photo shoot, so we'll prioritize the questions for Larry for a little bit, but you'll still have plenty of time to ask the other 2 gentlemen questions as well. So let's start with Chips. And how did it all start for you guys?
So say what?
How did it all start?
What did you say?
With an audition.
Yeah. I talk in English, but fast.
Well, it started by us being asked to audition for this. And we had to fight our way to the top of the rank there to get the part.
Next.
Okay, next.
Go ahead, Larry.
The Rick Rosner was a producer and asked me to star in this television series called Chips. He asked me to star in one before as a pilot called Aero Bureau, where I was a cop with Don Meredith, who's a famous quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys in the United States. And so we did that pilot, and it didn't sell, and then he came back and asked me to star in Chips, and I said, no, I'm not doing any more cop shows, and I'm an actor. And then I realized that, like all prostitutes, they'll pay you enough money. So here I am. Thank you, by the way, for employing me.
So how I got my start?
Yeah, how do you start on Chips?
On Chips. Well, I had to audition. I did a lot of people for the role. Then it got narrowed down to 2 guys. And then the creator of the show, Rick Rosner, that created the show, wanted me for the role of Poncherelli. It was Poncherelli. I changed his name later to Poncherello, and I made him Hispanic American instead of Italian. It didn't make any sense for me to play him Italian, in my opinion, since I'm Hispanic, Puerto Rican, from New York. Anyway, he wanted me, but the network didn't want me because I had played for many years a Latino with the gun, the knife, the break, the pimp, the badass on the street, bad boy, all the time. Stereotypical back in the early 70s, that's the roles that we got, as Latino actors. So he put me on a bike, put me in uniform, put me on a bike and screen tested me, and when he showed that to the network, they said, oh, there's a good guy. So I got it. Ta-da! But I almost didn't get it.
Yeah, I've been chatting to a few people when they've been lining up to come in here,
Good.
and they've all been asking me one question. What's it like to ride a Kawasaki bike on the streets of California? So how was that back in the 70s and early 80s?
Well, you have to crash a lot. I got a lot of stuff. This one here, see, this is normal. This is not. I broke that one year, right? Mm-hmm. And I also punctured both my lungs and fractured 12 ribs, and I was in the hospital for 7 days until I had it. In the hospital, I had it in a tent, and IVs all over me. So, I never rode a motorcycle. They had to teach me, and we got really good at it, but There's only two kinds of motorcycle riders. Those that have been down and those that are gonna go down. That's it. That's it, that's what you get. So I got hurt really bad. I had a spiritual thing going on in the hospital, out-of-body experience while I was in a coma. And I said, I'm getting out of here, and I got out. But you ride a motorcycle, you gotta wear the gear, because if you hit your head, forget about it. Nothing you can do will ever help you if you're hurt. You have a head injury, a severe one. But it's a wonderful machine, but you just gotta really respect it, or else it will hurt you eventually. Ta-da.
Yeah, Eric and I went through training together with the CHP, even though I grew up in Wyoming and ridden motorcycles most of my life. But riding a police bike's a much different vehicle, heavier and not as nimble as a dirt bike. And you dismount off the motorcycle the opposite side that you would normally think, because you're dismounting away from traffic. And there's certain rules they had, so we had to learn all those rules. We had to lay down the bikes, we had to wreck the bikes, we had to do high-speed braking so the rear end comes around and says hello to you, and it's still frightening to say the least. And but you have those big bars on the side of the motorcycle, so when you go down, at least it isn't falling on you. You're protected by the bars. So, and you have those big boots. So you're somewhat protected. The helmet, you have to wear a helmet riding a motorcycle or a bicycle. It's just naive, perhaps more crass statement is ignorant to be riding without a helmet. And so we got real good. What was really frustrating for Eric and I sometimes is they weren't sure how to do the close-ups. So, we could weave in and out of a little figure eight as big as this stage. And that's the hard part of riding a heavy motorcycle, is clutch and brake and balance. Anyone can ride fast going straight down the highway, but riding clutch and brake and balance so you don't fall over. Always looking back when you want to turn, the tendency is to look down, and you never want to do that. So that was good, but the frustrating part was they had to do close-ups, because how did John and Ponch talk to each other on the motorcycle? You sure as hell can't hear each other, right? The motors and the noise on the freeway, et cetera, so they put us on trailers. And so the close-ups
Just for dialogue.
Yeah, just for dialogue and just for close-ups. And when teeny boppers would be there watching us film, Ponch would ride in real cool, and they were in love with him, but he came back on the trailer, and they go, "Oh, you suck, dude."
And I would yell, "Your mother!"
So that was motorcycles. Thank you for listening.
I'm a whole different story. I'd never ridden a bike when it started. And they had us over just before the pilot started, over to the studio, MGM Studios, where we did it. And they had like streets there. And there were all through the sound stages. And when I did there, I came around the corner, and then I was going down, and there was a wall there, the sound stage. I had to either go right or left. And so I'm going down there, and one of the, I think it's the left hand is the accelerator.
Clutch.
The clutch. This is part of the problem. Okay. So this is the clutch, and this, okay. So I'm going down this, and I gotta either go right or left. Or brake. So I panicked, and instead of deaccelerating, I accelerated right into the wall. I was not hurt, but my ego was shattered. And all through I didn't go out, these guys went out, and anytime we were outside, it was these guys. I did all my big lines back when we went back to the studios. But I would get out there about every 2 or 3 episodes. They'd dare me to go back again. And it's very easy rolling into the picture. You get off the bike, do all your good stuff. You get out, and they had a big, they got everybody away. Because as soon as I got out of the picture, usually the bike went. And people ask me now, do you still ride a bike? I said, if I still rode a bike, I'd be dead. So that's my experience. So don't invite me out to ride your bike.
Now, I had the pleasure of interviewing these three gentlemen on the radio show I do on Academy FM, and one of the questions we asked was what came out of Chips, the good stuff. And you came up with a fantastic answer about what inspired.
What did I say?
Inspired children, and inspired children and other things. So, what else came out of the show other than your careers?
Well, you know what? A lot of people come up to us at these things and said, "I've got into law enforcement because of you," and that's a big compliment. And I just say, if they haven't retired, just please take care of yourself, because if something happens to you now, I'm going to really feel like I'm
Okay. So, some of the things about the show that came out that was great. First of all, it was a show that you could park your kid in front of the TV and you can go in the kitchen or grease the car or whatever you wanted to do and not have to worry about it, what the kid's going to see, what the kid's going to hear. All right? That was one of the nice things about the show. The other thing is, it was a show basically you watch with mom, dad, grandma, your brother, your sister, your first girlfriend, your first boyfriend, whatever. It was that kind of a show. And that, to me, what I always called the blessing of the show. That's how we were really super blessed. Yeah, we had two guys on motorcycles having blasts, crashes, the whole thing. We were like we were cowboys on bikes, okay, at the end of the day. But we also had the blessing of the fact that that show was watched with family. So when they run into us now, these years, 40, 50 years later, as a matter of fact, last month in March was 50 years that we finished filming the show. 50 years already, right?
Not for me.
So where was I, man?
Good for everyone.
It was that kind of show. So when people come up to us, they say, oh, I used to watch it with grandma, my mom, my dad, they loved you. I had your poster in my closet. My dad wouldn't let me have your poster, so I hid it in the closet. You know, stuff like that. Just great memories and warm, fuzzy feelings. The show brought that to people. That. And the mere fact that today, a lot of young law enforcement, first responders, people, paramedics that watched the show as kids, they were inspired to become in an occupation where you help your fellow man type occupation. And a lot of them became law enforcement, cops, firefighters, in that genre of occupation where you are compassionate to other people. And it was great. It was a great thing. So that was a lot of the plus stuff about the show. And the money.
Yeah, the money was great, and we're very grateful, as I said when you asked about taking the job. But you know, the really great thing for me, in addition to what Eric and Robert just said, and thank you both, is that it was a public relations vehicle for police agencies. And so, you know, how do you tell when a child, you need to condition children from the beginning to the end. One of the nice things that I've witnessed while I've been in the countryside here in UK is how polite children have been to me. Extremely polite. Not because of me, they just were polite in general. Good day, sir. Thank you, sir. Really quite nice, you know, that we don't see it in LA. So what my point is
America.
yeah. So how do you condition children? Well, through television. So how are police officers on television today? Very often edgy and psychological, with caveats about their personality or their psychological dilemmas. Not interested. You need to see some positivity in the world. So public relations, I think, was a real big item. 2 was a buddy film about 2 guys, one from cowboy from Wyoming and a guy from New York. He wanted to ride cockroaches and I wanted to ride motorcycles. Right? We had a great time together and our chemistry was fun, and it was fun to use that chemistry to help police officers, veterans, everybody that's serving country. So we had a good time. We should be so lucky. It was good branding.
Now, the 3 gentlemen in front of you are making their European conference debut today. So we welcome them for that. And obviously, it's their first chance to answer British questions about the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
If they were to make a reboot of Chips, we won't talk about the film, would you guys be happy to go on it and pass on the torch?
Of course, they get paid.
You actually can't make that show today.
No?
Because the appetite of the viewer today started changing when Clint Eastwood came out with his spaghetti westerns. And they were showing the guns going off and people get dying and blowing up. And then they got more intense as visually, motion pictures got more intense with, let's start with the Wild Bunch, the old Wild Bunch movie by John Huston, okay? They had a lot of blood and gore. And once you expose people to certain foods, sugar, they're gonna want more of it. And you can't do our kind of show. First of all, there are no empty freeways in California. And people won't, they'll go, It won't play. Unless it's on the Disney Channel, and some of their crap doesn't play either. Who's kissing who and who's hugging who. So it wouldn't work today. It really wouldn't work, in my opinion.
They did a movie about it, which I didn't see, but
Not much.
it wasn't very good from what I understand. And the problem because they've done a lot of this, they've done it with the other shows, doing a motion picture about it. And the difficulty is, if you made that movie, you'd have to make it like we did it, where there's no violence. And because the biggest audience would be the young children who've grown up who want to take their children to it and show them what good entertainment can be without all that other stuff. So Eric's right. I don't think you could do it now.
So I disagree. I say that with humility. I've written a script that's is about Chips. I'll just tell you one little scene. And so I think it could be done, A. B is that you have to find evasive ways to not shoot it on freeways because it'll be cost prohibitive today. Therefore, I wrote a scene where, if we were so lucky to do it, Eric, Punch, would be the older guy now, but he's still the sexy older guy. And so the sexy older guy, I said to myself, well, what would you do with the sexy older guy so he isn't insulted, right? And so I made him the motorcycle trainer. He trains all the guys how to ride motors because he was the hot shot, the wild guy, and he's still sexy and he rides the motor. You know? So Seven Ford trains the people on motors. And his son just got out of Special Forces, an SAS kind of Delta Force kind of guy, badass. And he joins the CHP like his dad, and he's a lot better than his dad is on a motor. And his dad formerly failed him in CHP motor school, and they have this kind of feud going on. So between his son and the father, there's a little tension. But finally the son passes and goes off to be a motor officer, so that's what happens. You gotta buy it.
Next question.
Where's the sergeant?
He's in the home.
With the scene where they're
He's
going-
with visiting angels.
I was gonna say, I could see the movie opening at my funeral.
Next question, please. You at the back.
Oh, great seeing you guys. I'm all the way from Ghana, West Africa.
Oh, wow.
And I watched the show, like you said, with my parents, my brothers, my sister. Everyone could watch it. Do you sometimes hear from people like me and just wonder how far the show reached out to people and touched them? Hear from other people in other countries where it's like, wow, you probably had no idea how far you were getting, but you actually touched a lot of people throughout the world.
Yeah. You ever seen Ponch dance to Japanese music and
The show was, it played in 87 countries when it came out. And it was dubbed in so many different languages. It's incredible. And it affected a lot of cultures that, you know, don't even relate to our culture. But it did. It did open the door to people wanting to come to America, wanting to come to California to see what that was like. Because of what the show did to them, like you said. Family, you watched it with your brothers and sisters, nieces, cousins, and you'll always have that memory. When you, if you go to California, you see a guy, you see a CHP officer on a motorcycle, boom, Chips is going to come right away. The show is going to come to you. And then the memory that you had as a kid, the good stuff, the fun stuff. It was, we love it. I mean, we love that it happened that way. That's why I call it a blessing. You know? Yeah, you're not ever going to see them kind of shows anymore. That stuff is gone. That's old school. That's not going to happen anymore. But it did happen, and it was great. And it showed that it could happen. But again, in this culture today, in the world, the way it is, and all the, you know, the one side, left side, right side, woke side, liberal, crap, you put up the boat, you know? No, it's not going to happen. Never mind.
You know, the first time I was aware of the vast area that it covered was I was on a celebrity tennis tournament where we went to the Middle East, or the Far East, I guess. In Indonesia, went to Jakarta, and we got off there, and it was huge there. And they had done a takeoff on it, a half-hour show, and they had their own punch or whatever. And we get there, get our crew on a bus. They go out, and there were these two guys on motorcycles who were playing Punch and John, and they go out and stop traffic on this like huge freeway, and I was shocked. And I went, but this is my wife over here, who played my wife on Chips. When stand up and take a bow. Anyway, that's the first time I was aware of how the vast coverage that we had.
So, really neat kind of experience is how it affects all different countries. It was syndicated in many countries, and I won't bore you with all the statistics, but the point is that today, gentlemen came with their motorcycles, in their uniforms, with everything from John Punch and the Sarge, and brought their motorcycles, and they showed pictures of all their organizations in France that they go out and play chips and, you know, ride their motors and on highways. And then another group we know does it in Japan. There's like 30 guys, and they all go out. Like, I'm a wannabe fighter pilot, so if they let me go fly a simulator or something, I'm a wannabe cowboy, right? And let me do that. but it's so fun, so complimentary, and so humbling that all these grown men take their little boyhood enjoyment on chips and form these little clubs and go riding together. So I'd like to say to all the people from Ghana or wherever, and by the way, I went to West Africa all the time, Cote d'Ivoire, and Burkina Faso, and Cameroon, and all those places. And even there, chips was popular.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we weren't Dieter Drogba, as the famous soccer player from West Africa, but we were chips. So thank you.
Right, this gentleman here.
On the show, there was a term, clouder, which meant car thief. They used it quite often on the show. But do you know where it came from? Because even Google or ChatGPT, they don't know the term clouder. So do you know where it came from?
Clouder.
I don't remember that.
You sure it was Clouder?
You weren't watching Starsky and Hutch. Don't talk all like that.
It was only 7 at the time, so I'm probably getting mixed up.
Sorry, I don't remember the
Clouder. Who did it? In the show. You saw it in the show? You heard it in the show?
Yeah, I think it over the radios, over the CD.
Clouder? No, it's LA 7 married 4, 7 married 3, and
That's 4.
Maybe it was 5150. That means crazy.
Okay, next question. This gentleman here.
So during the film, I understand that the Chips headquarters was actually a physical CHP
Yes.
headquarters. So what happened to the original CHP cops when you were filming? I mean, were they on holiday or were they doing their job properly?
well, okay.
That's an interesting question. As far as I know, they were still doing business, but we would obviously call them ahead of time and say, could we do this and that? And then we recreated the interior of on our sound stage, stage 10, I think it was, and at MGM, which you couldn't tell the difference whether if I was down there or in there, it was the same thing. So all we would have used it for is to arrive and then go into the headquarters.
Yeah, they reproduced the interior of the briefing room at stage 3 at MGM Studios. But like he said, they would do shots of us coming in, because the building is still there. Everything is still there and it's in operation. So we couldn't keep filming there for 6 years. So they had to recreate the interior, but we used the exterior to pull in and pull out. Yeah.
It was stage 10.
It's underneath, it's 1777 Washington Boulevard is the address of the station, all right? And there's 4 levels of freeway that just intertwine. They call that the 4 level. So it's all still there and all happening.
Okay, next question. Well, at the right back. If you stand up and we can't see you here. Right.
Sandy, that's a fan of, not a fan, she's like family.
Oh, really?
We know her for years.
What you know now, what would you say to your younger self?
To my younger self?
Yeah, when filming and
What would I say to my younger self?
what advice would you give to your younger self?
I wouldn't say that. You can never give that up. No. I got my woman right there. She's gonna smack the shit out of you.
Or was it that perfect you wouldn't change it?
That's closer to the truth.
I'd have to say, to me, was be a little more patient. Don't be so quick to punch somebody in the face. And but you see, I didn't have what most kids should have. I didn't have somebody I could go to and ask, hey, I got this thing going on and I don't know, and I get food for thought. I didn't have that, so I learned on my own, my way. And that caused me a lot of pain and a lot of ups and downs and, you know, a lot of displeasure, okay?
Yeah.
I got stronger words for it, but we're not gonna say that here, because it is Sunday. You know what I mean? Yeah, that's what I would do. I would lighten up on that, you know.
Larry, have you got any?
Oh, there's so much, you know, so I'll try not to go through the DSM manual, the psychology manual. By the way, Gwen's a licensed and very successful psychologist, so I don't want to go down a lane I don't belong. But I belong in that DSM manual, that's for sure. I had just come, you know, I was raised in Wyoming where people were really practical. And there's a place for practicality and places where it doesn't really apply. And so when you're murdering cattle, shooting them in the head to butcher them for dinner, or doing things like that, it's just part of life. And killing the geese and whatever, you know, it's just part of life, hunting and so on. But then I went to the Marine Corps and went to Vietnam for 13 months. And when I came back from Vietnam, I started starring in Lassie and then later starred in Chips with Ponch and the Sarge here. So what you realize at a much later part in life is, why didn't you just love on people? And why were, you know, your choice of thoughts in life are often your reality. So be very careful of your choice of thoughts, because there's a lot of traps in your realities that you're choosing. And I think from Vietnam, you know, I was basically pissed off. Had a lot of rage, and if you wanted to test it, I enjoyed the test. So, you know, I look back and say, wow, what if you would have been a more loving guy and a more sensitive guy, a more respectful guy, and more gratitude guy? But it's all good to say that, but you're a product of that conditioning. You don't insert somebody in that environment and pull them out and ask them to say, thank you, sir. You know, I just wasn't there. So that's your answer. Thank you.
For me, I arrived on Chips and I was perfect. As the show went on, I just became more perfect. Well, you know, as anybody at that age, I don't know, I was in my 30s, my mid-30s when I got this job, and I hadn't had a series before. I did a lot of pilots and whatever. And I don't think when I first started, I appreciated what I had. And I didn't look at it, you know, I always thought that if I got a thing, I'd be the star of it. And I wasn't in this, and that became all right. When I first started it, I knew that I was a co-star or whatever. These guys, all you do is read the script, and it was pretty obvious. I'll tell you a funny story, but it really woke me up. As it started, these guys, the publicity department would get all the letters coming in about the fan mail, and they'd come there. So I went, about 2 weeks into it, I went and said, where is my fan mail? And they looked at one another. Well, you haven't gotten it. Oh. And that sort of set the pattern that I appreciated more and more as we did this. And I loved the role I did. I thought we were all perfectly cast in this. And I had the writers in there. Other people would write the scripts, so these people would go through and nail it. And our two writers were had been in the military, and they really knew how to write good dialogue for me, which I really appreciated. So as time went on, I appreciate more and more, like with you people here, what this has done for me in my life, and what these guys did for me in my life.
We have time for one final question, okay? Yours was up first, so we go with you, sir.
How long did it take to film one episode, and did you all get on?
7 days.
What do you say?
How long did it take now, and did you all get on?
It would take 7 business days to shoot all this film, and then they take and cut it down to 48 minutes so they can fit in 12 minutes of commercials. That's it.
And did you all get on?
We hated one another.
That's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, this has been their European debut, so let's encourage them to come back with another round of applause.